Good afternoon and welcome to our ongoing coverage of what has become the worst fighting between Israel and Hamas in 2 years. Israel enters its third day of the ground operation in the Gaza Strip in an effort to end militant rocket fire, marking day 13 of hostilities. In breaking news this hour, Israel and Hamas have both agreed to a Red Cross request for a 2-hour ceasefire in the fighting in Gaza. The 2-hour ceasefire will go into effect, it went into effect at 1:30 p.m. Israel time, and is intended to help evacuate and treat wounded in the besieged neighborhood of Shajaiya. Now, our diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev is with us to decipher the Israeli decision to grant a 2-hour humanitarian ceasefire. Tal.
Well, yes, Meredith, just a short while ago, the IDF did confirm that Israel did apply to the Red Cross request in the name of the Hamas to give the neighborhood of Shajaiya a 2-hour ceasefire. It went into effect at 1:30 Israeli time and will last until 3:30, meaning 1.5 hours from now. And during this time, Palestinian medical teams and ambulances will be able to try and evacuate some of the wounded. We do hear reports from Gaza of a very, very bad humanitarian situation there. The IDF tweets just a short while ago that the ceasefire is limited to the neighborhood of Shajaiya and other eastern parts of the Gaza Strip, but the IDF strikes will continue in other parts of the Gaza Strip. And they do explain that since the July 8th, the beginning of the operation, there have been 140 rockets fired from this neighborhood. And during the operation today, during the activities, 10 holes to tunnels were exposed. So the IDF is trying to explain what is the rationale behind this very tough attack and harsh attack. At the same time, we do get reports that Hamas is preventing journalists to leave the Gaza border, even though the IDF did let them, the IDF opened the crossing so journalists inside Gaza can leave Gaza, and we understand they're not being allowed to leave the Strip. And the IDF, continuing these humanitarian efforts, will establish a field hospital at the Erez border crossing to treat Palestinian wounded and to treat Palestinian casualties. It's the same as the model that the IDF did implement in the Syrian border for casualties of the Syrian civil war. We'll still have to wait and see if the Palestinians will use the Israeli medical services or refrain from it.
All right. Well, Tal Shalev, thank you very much for these updates. And we go now to the city of Ashkelon, where our reporter Charles Bibozer is standing by. Charles, what are the latest updates?
Hi, Meredith. The latest is that things on the rocket front are relatively quiet. We're in the city of Ashkelon, which has been one of the most hard-hit communities in southern Israel, and there have only been 2 code red sirens so far today, and about 5 or 6 rockets directed at the city, all of which were intercepted by Iron Dome. The latest reports of rockets fired into Israel occurred about an hour ago. 2 of them were fired towards the Eshkol Regional Council. That being said, while rockets also earlier today target Beersheba and some central communities in Israel, one would have to say that today is certainly the quietest day on that front, and one can only speculate as to whether or not that has something to do with the ongoing intense fighting in the Gaza Strip.
Right, absolutely. Well, Charles, thank you very much for these updates. And 2 rockets fired from the Gaza Strip landed in southern Israel just half an hour ago, as Charles said, breaking the 2-hour lull in rocket fire that occurred after Gaza requested a humanitarian truce for 2 hours to tend to their dead and wounded. Now, earlier this morning, sirens blared throughout the south and center of Israel, with the Iron Dome defense system intercepting at least 5 rockets. 1 rocket hit a building in the coastal southern city of Ashkelon. No injuries were reported, although moderate damage was caused. Meanwhile, on the ground, Israel expanded its ground offensive in Gaza, with large numbers of ground forces entering the Strip overnight with the stated aim of destroying Hamas cross-border tunnels. Saturday and Sunday has seen some 29 wounded Israeli soldiers evacuated to hospitals across Israel, according to medics with moderate to serious wounds. The ongoing fighting comes after the death of 2 Israeli soldiers killed in a cross-border attack by Hamas militants. And we go now to the Gaza border with our reporter Michal Divon. Michal, we know there's a lot of activity going on. What do you have to report?
Hi, Meredith. Well, the humanitarian ceasefire just came into place, and in fact, there is quiet around here. We still hear the drones above our heads and some military aircraft. But what you see behind me, the smoke above the Shujaiya area, is actually from before the ceasefire. So it seems that these 2 hours will be silent. Now, I would like to remind you that this entire area, the Shujaiya area here in the north of the Strip, Bet Khanoun, Jabalia, these were areas that were asked by the IDF to evacuate. These areas were handed leaflets, either from the air, SMSs, phone calls. They were asked to evacuate before the ground operation began. And of course, this is probably the reason the IDF says that the Shujaiya area is highly popularized by civilians. However, the Hamas uses this exact area for storing their rockets, for building their tunnels, and for having command centers as well. As we know, over 20 tunnels have been uncovered at this time, and there's almost an underground Gaza that's being unfolded now that the ground operation has entered. Now, the IDF, who has approved this 2-hour humanitarian ceasefire, is asking the citizens of Shujaiya to leave at this point and to go to Gaza City. We're expecting that the strikes will continue once the ceasefire is over. Now, on another note, the IDF has also decided to establish a field hospital which will be treating Palestinian patients. This will take place at the Erez crossing. The different services that will be provided in this field hospital will include emergency care, pediatricians, gynecology services even, and basically, its purpose is to provide whatever care is needed and services for Palestinian citizens. Now, 8 o'clock this evening is when the field hospital is expected to open. There will be doctors, nurses, X-ray and lab technicians as part of this field hospital. And very strange reports we have received from some colleagues and other journalists who are at the moment in the Gaza Strip. They've been told and guided by Hamas not to exit through the Erez crossing, as this is a security risk. We don't know why exactly, but for some reason journalists are being prevented by the Palestinians, by the Hamas, to enter the Erez crossing. This is all we know at the moment, but of course we are waiting for more details and we'll report back to you here from the Gaza border.
Well, Michal Divan, thank you for all of these updates from the Gaza border. And mentioning the wounded standing by at Sheba Medical Center in central Israel is Meirav Savir. Meirav, we understand soldiers were evacuated to be treated at this hospital earlier today.
Yes, Meredith, as of this morning, 8 soldiers were evacuated here to Sheba in central Israel. That makes it a total of 13 soldiers who are being treated here. We spoke to the director of the hospital, Professor Ze'ev Ratzin, and he told us that 4 of them were severely injured. One of them severely to moderate, another moderate, and 2 slightly injured. He said some of them came from missile injuries, other blunt injuries, and from explosions. He also told us that they're keeping in high spirits. 2 soldiers who were evacuated to here yesterday, who were in severe conditions, are now smiling and are doing better. We are waiting to hear if more will be evacuated to here. They told me that they are expecting more and are able to take more, that they actually opened a 3rd landing pad for helicopters so that they could be able to evacuate more soldiers to Sheba if necessary.
I see. Well, Meirav Savir from Sheba Medical Center, thank you very much for these updates. Meanwhile, hundreds of Israeli peace activists and supporters gathered in the central city of Tel Aviv last night to protest against Israel's offensive in Gaza, calling on both Israel and Hamas to end the violence. The protesters were heckled by a handful of angry Israelis who support the ground offensive as police attempted to divide the crowds. And just to return to our breaking news this hour, Israel and Hamas have both agreed to a Red Cross request for a 2-hour ceasefire in the fighting in Gaza. Specifically in the Shujaiya neighborhood in Gaza, the 2-hour ceasefire has gone into effect at 1:30 p.m. Israel time. That's 11:30 GMT, and is intended to help evacuate and treat wounded in the besieged neighborhood of Shujaiya. Thank you for watching.